Well, good morning. Good morning. I've been set an impossible task to talk about what we've learned from the last 25 years of Lean in 20 minutes. So I'll have a go. We'll see where we get to. We all started by trying to understand this system through the tools. And it was indeed our mission right at the beginning of our journey to write down all of the elements of this system so that people could learn to use them themselves and to do Lean themselves. And of course, we began with the tools. And we wrote and translated and taught these tools, and we're still teaching these tools all around the world. And tools went out of fashion because we recognized that, in fact, tools are not enough. So the next step in our journey was to see, well, how do we really learn to use these tools? It's the use of these tools and the combination of these tools and the management system around using these tools that was key. And that was our next challenge, was to begin to describe a management system that made these tools effective. The tools are still extremely important, as I'll mention later. So we focused on understanding a management system. And as we did that, we realized that, in fact, the key to a management system here in a Lean world is actually learning. And so we dug deeper into the psychology, the practice of learning. And there's been a tremendous amount of interest in many different disciplines in understanding how we learn in a systematic way using the scientific method, the PDCA framework, which has been around for a long time. People found difficult to operationalize and difficult to actually practice day in, day out. And Lean is really about the practice of learning to use these tools in a concrete, real situation that you face day in, day out. And it's not the solution of the problems that's key, it's actually the process, the thought process that you learn in solving those problems. So we learned a great deal about learning and also about management. And now we are reflecting on the many experiences and stories that companies have had over the last 25 years that we've been fortunate to observe. And we've seen many successes, we've seen many failures, we've seen some successes that last for a while and then go away again. But typically, wherever we've infected an organization, it reappears, even if it was unsuccessful for a while. So our questions now in the Lean Global Movement are reflecting, and maybe that reflects the age of some of the founders, including Jim Womack and I. We're now in a period of Hansei to reflect on understanding the transformation process itself and trying to understand what works and what doesn't work. Not to find a formula or a method or a roadmap, but to try and help others in facing their transformation journey and give them some insights from other stories and lessons that can help them be more successful. So I think that's our journey, has been from tools to management and learning, and now to transformation. And we still are learning. The great thing about Lean is that A, it's an infection with no antidote. You can't actually get this out of your head once it's in there. And that's a very good thing. But it's a troubling thing. And the other great thing about Lean is that you think you understand Lean when you understand a little. But the true Lean practitioner will always tell you, actually, I've just realized how much I still have to learn. And that's still true. Every day, walking around organizations, collecting questions, which is what I do. I collect questions and try and reflect on those questions. So the second thing we've done is we've spread Lean from production operations and organizations into supply chains. Lean is spread into product development organizations, project management, software development, construction, project management. Lean is now spread into services and all kinds of services activities and healthcare. And we've built a Lean global network to teach this and to build this capability in every country that we can. So actually, I think we've achieved a lot more than we expected to achieve when we started out on this journey. And it's very encouraging. Now, if I was to summarize the 5 lessons, I've got 5 different points I want to make, which I think for me summarize the lessons we've learned on our Lean journey. Thinking both about the past and what we've learned, but also thinking about the challenges of the digital age that we're now entering. So the first is that we must never forget that Lean is about always focusing on improving the product or the service or the user experience every day. So what we do has to impact the quality of what we do, the consistency of the promises, the additional features that we can offer, the next generation products and service that we can imagine. And that's very important. And sometimes in our interest in improving process, we forget that. But that's the purpose. That's always been the purpose. Now in the digital age, of course, we have opportunities for having a dialogue with our customers and understanding much more precisely through big data and other techniques exactly how customers use our products. In fact, Rolls-Royce engines have, for years and years and years, been sold on a power-by-the-hour basis where customers buy the use of the engines. And the engines themselves have the ability, have sensors in them, and have the ability to communicate back to Rolls-Royce headquarters in real time. So Rolls-Royce knows the problems with an engine flying from London to Singapore before the airline knows, and can actually then position the necessary response when the plane reaches Singapore. So that kind of feedback has been exceptional in the past, is now commonplace. So we can actually design our products with a much better understanding of exactly what our customers want, use, are looking for, etc., etc. Big data helps us do that. So how far are we reaching out and really understanding both our immediate customers in the value stream, but also our end customers? And I liked this phrase from an IT company in Stockholm that I visited recently. Difficult to read, but it says basically, our dealings are increasingly complex. That our duty, and this is an IT company, our duty is simplicity. We are trying to make life simpler and easier for our customers, not more complicated. So bearing those 2 things in mind, bearing the fact that products are an embodiment of our understanding of what the customer wants, every day we should be thinking back from our customers rather than forward from what we can do that customers may or may not want. So it's the product. Also, of course, it's the value stream that creates that product. The end-to-end set of activities from a customer searching to a customer paying for the use of the product, and all of the steps in between, what we call a value stream. And we spend a lot of time understanding how we perform our work better in that value stream by using the tools. We also spend a lot of time together mapping and becoming conscious of the value stream, understanding the whole value stream through mapping it and learning to develop a picture together of where that value stream's broken and what actions we might take to and to remove the bottlenecks and queues in that value stream and compress the value stream so that value really does flow, rather than flow and wait and flow and wait and flow and wait and flow and wait. We also begin to understand a big picture of how different activities in an organization actually have impacts elsewhere. Product mix has big implications for the reconciliation of invoices at the back. All kinds of cross impacts in an organization that are currently invisible become visible. But the one thing that we've learned about value streams is the value stream is actually the effectiveness of a value stream is the sum of the capabilities of the people managing that value stream. It's not just the capabilities of the equipment and so on, which, yes, absolutely is important. But it's the ability of people in a complex value stream where you remove the buffers to make the work visible, to see deviations from the plan, to act on those deviations, and then to do root cause problem solving on continuous problems or repeat problems. And it's only by engaging everybody and developing the capabilities of everybody in a value stream that we can run a tightly synchronized value stream that actually contains multiple potential causes of interruption. So it's capabilities that is really the focus to make value streams work. If we develop the capability of everyone, that is what's different about Lean. This is not about relying on experts to design what should happen and tell people what to do. This is about developing the capabilities of people in the line themselves. The third reflection is that the work of management then is essentially to enable the front line to create value. It's a completely different orientation of management. You need to build a management system up to support the line rather than a management system to deploy decisions. I'm not saying you're not going to deploy decisions, but actually fundamentally to run that synchronized value stream, it's about enabling that value stream to flow. And also, it's interesting that that horizontal value stream actually is the customer for the resources held by the functions. In the past, they're looking up to fulfill the targets that were set for them. In the future, they actually have to meet the requirements, really, of the value stream and be judged on how well they are serving that value stream and enabling it to flow. And it's very interesting that we are seeing a shift now in the role of experts. Because expertise used to be lots of knowledge that experts had at their disposal. That's now all on Google. So the experts become much more a coach and the wisdom of how you select from that information to solve a particular problem at a particular place. So Lean is actually an environment in which management is supporting and enabling the work to take place. And the fourth thing we've learned about Lean is that instead of automating broken processes, which is what we've often done, and simply embodying these broken processes in very complex, dysfunctional IT systems, Lean says, let's develop the capabilities, let's become masters of the process. Let's use the knowledge of current process where it's broken, where it could be improved, to design next generation process. And that's an example of a compression of a supply chain, multiple products coming together to be assembled for a customer, a rethinking of what the next generation supply chain from a supply chain with 90 weeks in it to a supply chain with 24 days. Having done that, having stabilized the process, having redesigned it, having become masters of it, then it's time to automate. So automation is the last step, not the first step. And pull is the technique for linking all of those steps and making all of the disconnects and the handovers and the problems visible. So pull is extremely important focusing device for developing mastery of processes. And then finally, the final point, which I want to talk about a little bit if you send the right Kanban card, is actually how to improve the effectiveness of management and how to link the strategic decisions that management can envisage the organization needs to achieve, the performance gaps the organization needs to close, the critical performance gaps they need to close, how to translate those into actions on the shop floor, and how to focus the actions only on meeting those objectives. The hardest thing to do is for management to deselect pet projects. We'll talk about that further. But I was in a big IT company in Stockholm again, really interesting, multiple sites, lots of customers, very big IT projects. They led me into their Abea room, where senior management actually managed the deployment of the resources and projects and so on, and there was not a single screen in that room. It was entirely visual on the whiteboards. And I said, jokingly, surely you could automate this. You're IT guys. And they said, some decisions are too important to automate. And I thought that was really powerful. Because it is not simply the decisions, it's the collective activity of deciding in a visual environment and making cross-promises in a visual environment, evidence-based decisions that then people commit to. So it's the behaviors of the senior team in a Hoshin, in a strategy deployment process, in a visual management room, that actually creates the binding, the glue, the collaboration across functions, and the focusing of resources that makes management effective. I said jokingly at the Polish Summit last week, 2 days ago, that the biggest source of muda in any organization is actually the top. It's the most expensive. Headquarters is the biggest pile of muda you could possibly imagine. I mean that half-jokingly. If we could make management as effective as we're making the value stream, then we have a true lean, effective organization. So, those are my 5 reflections on 5 lessons we've learned over the last 25 years. We have a lot of work still to do. And I'm offering to talk about 4 of the challenges that I think we need to talk about. You can steer which one you would like me to spend more time on. This was a suggestion of the organizers. We'll see whether it works. I can talk more about learning to focus, which is the whole question of senior management and focus and Hoshin and decision making. Very important. I can also talk about diagnosing the end-to-end value stream flows and diagnosing that at an organization level, which is an extremely important role for middle management in the future. And it's a real skill. It's a real skill with some quite important tricks that can allow us to intervene in a value stream in the right places to unlock the rest of the value stream. But how do I see that? Third, I can talk a bit about developing capabilities, which is really the foundation. And I think most of you are well down that path. But it might be worth summarizing the building blocks in developing capabilities. And the final thing I want to talk about, at least a bit, is the digital age and this ability to include the customer in our value streams, in our design, in our production, and our service delivery value streams. The customer is no longer out there receiving what we give them. The customer is informed, impatient, enabled, and we are enabled to actually track exactly what the customer wants. What does Lean offer in a digital world? So I want to share a couple of examples that point the way to possibly doing that. So I think I'm 23 seconds short of the deadline that was set to me. So that's something to think about to start with, and take out your Kanban card and vote for which of those 4 you'd like me to talk more about in the second talk. So, I think we're now into the question time.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr.
One
Jones.
second.
Please remain. Hölgyeim és uraim, ahogy azt Jones úr is elmondta az imént, 10 percünk van jelen pillanatban arra, hogy a kérdéseiket feltegyék. Elől is, és a terem hátsó részében is egy hostess áll rendelkezésre egy mikrofonnal. Kérem, aki szeretne kérdést feltenni, jelezze. Köszönjük. Itt lenne egy kérdés. Parancsoljon.
Kicsit lassú még a csapat. Egy gyors kérdés. A Top Muda kifizette a számlát?
What's the question?
Mesélt arról, hogy a top volt a Muda, és ott volt a legtöbb probléma. Kifizették a számlát?
Do top management pay the bill? Yes. I think the customer pays the bill. Look, I'm being unfair and I'm challenging you. But actually there's a lot of truth in it. If you think about the way we have analyzed the shop floor, we are looking for fractions of a second to improve. And if you look at the fraction of time that shop floor people spend actually creating value, it's a very small fraction of the time that they're actually there. The same is true with management. How much time do we spend on firefighting, on sitting in meetings, on reviewing projects, etc., and what fraction of that time is actually creating value? Is actually making a decision or doing something that will affect the value creation process. It's a small fraction. So all I'm saying is that we need to think about applying the same logic to management work as to shop floor work. And in doing so, we can actually make management much more effective, and we can free management up for coaching, developing, innovating, for the things management actually should be doing. So it's liberating for management too, actually, not challenging.
Köszönjük szépen. További kérdések? Parancsoljon.
My question will be regarding, you talked about the top management. I'm very much interested in the shift leaders level. What is your opinion about it? Because the shift leaders, yes, the lower level. Because I think a lot of things are happening on the shop floor, and in my understanding, there is a big gap between the top management thinking and what is happening on the shop floor.
Yeah.
So how can we involve the shop floor management, and what is the lean practitioner's task to do that properly?
Well, part of the short answer is through a Hoshin process. The value of the Hoshin process at the top is focusing on the vital few that the organization should concentrate on. But the real value of the Hoshin process is the dialogue between the top and the bottom about these are the performance gaps we need to close. What can you contribute towards those objectives? And what resources do you need to do that? So it begins a dialogue down the organization that links actions with objectives. And so we want to end up with a situation in which everybody can see exactly how their improvement activities contribute to a higher level objective. And they can see how well they're doing in doing that, and the top can also see how well they are progressing towards closing that gap. So I'll talk a bit more about that, but you're absolutely right, that is the gap that we need to close. And frontline management carries a much more important role in a lean system than in the past, because they are not just managing the day-to-day activities, they're also coaching and teaching their staff, as well as having a dialogue horizontally with suppliers and customers in the value stream, but also up with management. So it's a very good question. I'll talk more about it.
Thank you very much.
További kérdés? Akkor amíg gondolkodnak rajta, I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
You spoke about the past 25 years.
Yes.
And I'm sure lean thinking has affected you as a person as well, not only the organization structures, etc. So how did you change in the past 25 years thanks to lean?
That's a very good question. it's like everybody, my experience is that you can't switch off from lean. And so when you're sitting in an airport, when you're traveling, when you're going through a store, when you're trying to make something work on the internet, you're constantly saying, this could be so much easier and so much simpler. And so I suppose you get grumpy. And there is a danger that you get grumpy all the time because you can see that everything doesn't work properly as it should. I've recently learned, as I've relinquished responsibility for running my institute and running the Lean Global Network with Jim, we're able to reflect and do other things. I've actually managed to learn for the first time in 30 years to switch off from lean thinking. It's a skill. And I went on holiday and I didn't think about lean for a fortnight. And my wife said, "You're not thinking about lean." So it changes the way you think. For instance, I'm sure you're involved in A3, using A3s. I've got involved in using A3s over the last 5 or 6 years, and just now I can't actually approach a problem without getting out a big piece of paper and a pencil. Not a computer and not a pen, but a pencil, and start thinking about it in A3. So it becomes the habit and becomes the way you think. But it only becomes the way you think through practice. So if I could rename the book, I think Jim and I would now call it Lean Practice. Practice in two senses. Practice in the doing of things, but practice also in doing it time and time again and learning through practice.
So has that affected your immediate surroundings, your family members,
Well, I
etc.?
try not to, but I suppose it does. Of course it does. Yes. So there is no antidote, but it's good fun. And I've been fortunate that people have paid me to go and look at their problems for a long time. So why should I complain?
Thank you very much. További kérdések?
Köszönöm. A szakértők szerepéről beszélt, hogy megváltozott, és itt a menedzsment és a szakértők együttműködéséről. Mi itt a trend? Ugye van, ahol a integrálás a jövő, hogy beintegrálják a menedzsmentbe, van, ahol függetlenül próbálják mozgatni. Ez milyen irányba megy a jövő? Mi itt a tapasztalat?
I don't think there's one answer to that issue.
And you have 5 seconds for it too.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Sorry.
Okay, briefly, I think there's an extraordinarily important dialogue and question that we're having now, because I think the role of experts is fundamentally changing with the web. And what experts do and contribute changes. I think the relationship between experts and the front line has to be rethought, because experts can offer wisdom and guidance and coaching and mentoring support, but actually they're no longer the people to tell people what to do. So lean management is about managing by asking questions rather than telling people what to do. And that's a big, big topic. So you've hit on something that we need to find lots of ways of experimenting to find out what works, but I don't think there's one answer. I think there's many answers. But the role of experts and the role of everybody in the organization is key.
Thank you very much,
That's a
Mr.
pleasure.
Jones. Looking forward to your afternoon presentation as well.